It's been 2 years since the last Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, and while Marvel's Disney Plus shows have been there to help us through the pandemic, they have been relatively hit or miss in my opinion. But now Black Widow is finally here, and there are a lot of expectations I had going into the film. This is meant to be the first film of Phase 4. This movie is meant to introduce new characters into the MCU. This movie should make me care about the character of Black Widow, because I have never really thought of her as one of my favorite characters before. So with all those expectations in play, how did the movie go? The movie begins with a thrilling first act. The action sequences are gritty, realistic, and violent even. We see Natasha deal with the events of Civil War, and get to know a little bit about her in the process. The standout fight scene in this act, and the whole movie in fact, is her fight with Taskmaster on the bridge. It was a great moment, showing not only Natasha's fighting style, but also Taskmaster's as well. And the music that goes with the scene is also phenomenal. Florence, Pugh, and David Harbour also completely steal the show in this movie. Their characters bring a smile to your face, and every time they are on screen, they're doing something memorable or enjoyable. The jokes that they make are just funny. All of the jokes with them, nearly all of them land, especially with Florence Pugh. And the action that they perform, it's quite different. Florence Pugh has lots of spinny, flippy kicks, while David Harbour has lots of punchy, gritty, full-on body slamming type of action. But it both works. Both of them works in the world of the movie because of the way how they're performing their action sequences. Overall, the action is just pretty good in this movie. The comedy lands most of the time. Sometimes it makes you roll your eyes into the back of your head, but most of the times it's pretty funny. One specific joke regarding Natasha posing really made my cinema laugh out loud. The story in this movie is mature and deep, even dark sometimes. The film deals about really disturbing things such as mind control, brutal killings, bombs, child killings, child slavery, child assassins, lots of children stuff. While all the dark stuff is balanced out by the light-hearted jokes and comedic moments, it's still dark. The movie has a very intense opening credits sequence that shows disturbing things. Now, I consider this to be a good thing. Marvel is expecting their audiences to be mature and really pay close attention to the story. The movie really pushes the PG-13 limits. Now, onto the bad, and unfortunately, there's a fair few things in the film that just do not work. The second act in particular is fairly boring. Our main characters are just sitting around a table talking about their past, and there's no action beats at all. They're just talking and talking. Again, if it wasn't for Florence Pugh or David Harbour's comedic moments, the second act might even put you to sleep. Then moving on to the third act, which is a huge CGI mess, and it follows every trope in the superhero story book. It's got a betrayal, it's got a monologue, it's got this cheesy one-liners during the fight sequences. All of it feels like it's directly copied from other Marvel or even superhero films. Also, the logic in this third act flies out of the window so fast. Characters fall at least 1,000 feet onto grassy lands, but they still manage to just get back up and keep having an action sequence. Natasha in particular feels like she has the biggest plot armor ever. She jumps out of a window onto a building, then falls all the way out of the building onto the grass and still manages to have a fight with Taskmaster. Speaking of the Black Widow, she is sidelined in this film. Her own film, and she's sidelined. Yeah. The movie prioritizes setting up characters for future installments in the franchise, which leaves her completely in the background. She may be the main character, but she is the least interesting. She's given no character arc and no journey to which to go on during the film. That saying, the movie reveals some things about her past, and after watching this movie, if you watch this scene with Loki and Black Widow in the Avengers, that scene is a whole lot better because of the knowledge you know now. In fact, I would even go to say that a movie regarding Black Widow and Hawkeye's adventures in Budapest would have been so much more entertaining than this movie that they gave us. Another letdown for this movie is that it is the first film of Phase 4, but it doesn't introduce anything special into the universe. If this wasn't the first film of Phase 4 and was just a film thrown into the mix of Phase 3, this would have been a fun little adventure. But instead, it's given this expectation to, set up future installments. Set up all these characters. Set up the storyline after Thanos. Where do we go now? And Black Widow's the film that is now here. It's required to set that up. And unfortunately, the pandemic has not helped things. Now that we've waited 2 years for this movie, it sort of feels like a letdown. But if we only waited about 9 months, it would have felt like a little bit of more of an adventure. If this movie had come out in 2016 or even 2017, it would have been much cooler, as this would have made Natasha's death in Endgame so much sadder. But instead, all of the tension that the movie tries to build, it fails at. We know Natasha's gonna survive because she's in Infinity War. She's in Endgame. We know Red Guardian, Melina, Yelena, they're all gonna survive because we know them. Kevin Feige has advertised them as the future of the MCU. Finally, I want to discuss Taskmaster. In the first act, Taskmaster is a legitimate, terrifying character, who you really start to think, how did the main characters beat this guy? If he can memorize everything he sees, he's literally undefeatable. And then they have this twist reveal with the character, and it ruins everything great about Taskmaster. In the comics, Taskmaster is meant to be this elite mercenary who cannot be stopped, but in this film, Taskmaster is sort of just a prop to get more action scenes. He's not the main villain, and in fact, in the end, he just becomes weak and easily defeatable. Overall, Black Widow is one of the weaker entries in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The movie has some solid moments, particularly in the first act, but after that, the movie divulges into a mess of a film, and it doesn't quite stick the landing. That said, I'm excited to see where these new characters go in the future, particularly Yelena. So that was my review of Black Widow. What did you think of the film? Let me know down below in the comment section. I'm planning to do an MCU movie ranking out soon, so stay tuned for that. And while you're at it, please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye-bye.